In China, many years ago, in the days of the great Ming emperors, everybody had their place and they knew exactly where their place was, and they stayed in it. Wei Mun was a merchant. He lived in a small house in a small town in one of the eastern provinces of China, and he traded and he bought and he sold and he did very well for himself. And one evening he was sitting as the sun was going down, bathing the land in golden light. He was ignoring it completely because he was counting his money. He was counting the strings of cash that the Chinese used, where all the little coins are tied round a piece of string, and counting them up, rattling the beads on the abacus. So much profit on a cargo of birds' nests, so much on a wagon load of silk, and the coins mounted up in front of his eyes when he was interrupted. A voice was raised outside his window. A loud voice chanting what appeared to be a scurrilous verse. And he walked to the window and looked out, and he couldn't see anyone. But the voice continued. Perhaps he'll go away. He went back to his counting table and kept counting. But the voice continued and drove into his ears, and eventually he went to his window. And this time he looked down, and sitting at the foot of his wall was a man clothed in a colourful coat of rags and patches, chanting as loudly as he could, and people were beginning to come and stop and listen. Wei Mun summoned two of his larger servants, and he sent them down to tell the stranger that he was not welcome. And so they took large clubs and went down to the street to try a little physical persuasion, but they returned very quickly, clutching their heads and staggering. Well, what's happened? The merchant wanted to know. Well, it seems to be some kind of storyteller, and he hit us over the head with a wooden duck.
Not a chicken. Not rubber chicken.
Wei Mun. No, it has to be a wooden duck. Wei Mun was annoyed and a little piqued, and he said, well, go down and ask him if he will come upstairs and take tea with me. So the servants rubbed their bruises and did as they were told. And a few moments later, the young man came into the upstairs room wearing a coat of shreds and patches. Round his neck was a wooden board book with verses inscribed on it. And in his hand he held a wooden duck. And he struck it with a small piece of wood, and it went, ah! In a very lifelike way. Who are you? Said Wei Mun, and why are you disturbing my peace? I am Kai Lung, said the storyteller. I'm a travelling singer, a vendor of ballads, a teller of tales, a maker of verses. Shall I make one for you now? No! What are you doing out there making a row? Here am I, look, I'm one of the premier merchants of this district. I am making money. I am one of the people that makes this economy work. How can I possibly do my work when you're out there making such a racket? I'm only working, said Kylon. This is my work. I'm part of the economy as well. I bring people together. I tell them stories that people want to hear. And they began to argue. And they argued furiously over which of them was the more profitable. The merchant challenged Kai Lung, how much money have you got on your person? And Kai Lung reached into a threadbare pocket and brought out a very threadbare string of cash. And as the argument continued, they were so embroiled that they did not notice what was happening outside. Outside, Passing by the window came the chair of Lei Tin, the local mandarin, the representative of the emperor, and the squad of soldiers that accompanied him everywhere he went. Lei Tin had been in post for a couple of years now, and he had a reputation for solid bureaucracy, for a total lack of a sense of humour, well, job qualifications after all, but also he had at least a reputation for being scrupulously, nitpickingly fair. And that, people reckoned, was something of a bonus when it came to your local mandarin. Anyway, he signalled for the chair to stop and listened to the row coming from the upstairs window. And as far as Wei Mun and Kai Lung were concerned, the next thing that happened were a large number of soldiers were coming through the door and dragging them downstairs, where they were forced to kowtow before the mandarin's palanquin. "What," said the mandarin, "is the meaning of this disturbance of the peace?" And they both started to talk at once. "Speak! Quiet! One of you at a time." So Wei Mun explained how his peace had been disturbed and how this worthless wastrel of a storyteller was trying to maintain that he was an important person. And Kai Lung explained with all humility that he was only providing entertainment for the masses, and he was simply trying to hold his own. In his humorless, bureaucratic manner, Lei Tin looked down at them and said, "Sir, you are arguing between yourselves about which is more profitable and important, the merchant or the storyteller." And they both nodded. "Very well. This is something capable of measurement. Tomorrow, at midday, Kai Lung will take his place on the hill to the east of the town, where he will tell stories. And Wei Mun will take his place at the west, on the hill at the west of the town, where he will distribute silver. And we will see who attracts the most attention." And this was proclaimed throughout the town. Night passed. The morning came. And at noon, the whole populace of the town were gathered on the western hill. Everybody. There was nobody at all on the eastern hill, not even Kai Lung, because he reckoned he was on a loser, so he might as well go to the western hill and get some silver so somebody handed it out.
Absolutely.
And looking around the crowd on the western hill from his exalted point on the top, Lei Tin said to the merchant, "Very well, you seem to have proved your point. Most, if not all, of the population of the town are here, so you might as well start distributing some money." Wei Mun looked uncomfortable. "I thought this was theory." The mandarin looked down from his chair. "You mean you have not brought with you a suitable supply of silver?" "No." "How much have you got?" Wei Mun looked in his sleeve, where the Chinese always kept their money in this sleeve. 37 cash. "Have you noticed," said the mandarin conversationally, "how many of these people are carrying weapons?" Wei Mun looked around and noticed. Then Kai Lung stepped forward, bowed low to the mandarin, and said, "With your permission, sir, I think I have an answer." And he climbed on a rock and he struck his wooden duck until people stopped looking at the Mandarin and looked at him. And he began to tell them a story, and he began at the very beginning of time. He began with the creation of the world itself. He began with the primeval waters and the creation of the great state of Qin. He began with the first emperor. He came through the gods and the giants and the formation of the world, and the great Qin emperor and his massive army of terracotta warriors. He told the story of the heroes of early China, of their great conquests, the dragons they slew, the armies they led, the fights they won. He told tales of romance. He told tales of the ordinary people. He told tales that won people's hearts. And as he spoke, he began to talk about the ordinary people and their homes and their hearths and the rice that was cooked for them every day and the food that was waiting for them when they got home. And one by one, members of the crowd began to think about their homes and turned away. Soon there was no one left on the hill except the Mandarin and his soldiers, Wei Mun and Kai Lung the storyteller. Well, said the Mandarin, I think that proves the point. Kai Lung, you are appointed as storyteller in residence to the Mandarin's court. Your annual salary will be a barrel of wine and 50 silver pieces, and the salary will be paid by Wei Mun, the merchant. Thank you both. You may go home.